Today, our speaker is Joanne Lai. Joanne Lai is a seasoned financial planner, wealth coach, and founder of Extensive Wealth Academy. Recognized among the top 1% of financial advisors globally, she is passionate about helping individuals and families achieve financial independence and sustainable wealth. With a Bachelor of Science in Statistics and Financial Mathematics from the National University of Singapore, Joanne has also earned multiple professional designations, including Certified Financial Planner, Associate Estate Planning Practitioner, and Accredited Financial Counselor. Her expertise spans estate planning, financial education, and mortgage planning, making her a trusted leader in the financial industry. With over 16 years of experience, Joanne has empowered countless individuals through personalized financial strategies, wealth building education, and a mission to foster financial literacy worldwide. Today, she continues to shape the future of financial empowerment, helping people take control of their financial well being. And with all that being said, let's welcome Joanne Lai.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Timothy. Yeah, thanks for the invitation as well. Thank you for coming and really hope that I'll be of value add to all of you and your time. So maybe I'll just introduce myself a bit. Yeah, so basically I'm a financial advisor and I've been doing this for the past 19 years. But the reason why I've been doing this back then when I first started my career, I asked myself, what are the things I want to do? So basically, I tried many internships over the years. So I was interning in National Dental Center. I almost thought I would become a dentist. I also did internships with Institute of Cell Molecular Biology. That was when I was around 16 years old. But over the years, I realized that there are two subjects that I love the most. One is maths and the other one is science. I've been teaching autistic and dyslexic children maths and science since I was in secondary school and also after A levels. So over the years, I realized that I wanted three things in life. I wanted to be able to help people. The second one is that I would be able to provide for my family. And the third one is that I must be able to be a blessing to the people around me and to be able to help people on an individual basis. Yeah. So then how did I get started over the years is that my mom was a strong advocate of financial planning since we were young. She told me that my grandfather used to have a lot of wealth, but he lost it because of poor financial planning. So at the age of 14 years old, she thought that my maths was good. And because of that, I was selected to do Maths Olympiad, and I won silver medal that few years. And she told me to sit in with her to a few of her meetings with her friends. So her friends were from a few different financial advisory companies. And from there, I got started and became curious about how money can make more money. And because of that, it started my first journey of wanting to create more wealth for the family so that it would be a blessing to the people around me. Yeah. So over the years, what happened is that I started to get myself in an intern position. At the age of 19 years old, I had some savings, I think about six-figure amount. And that was from tuition and also awards that I won through my schools. Because I was participating in multiple competitions, like besides Maths Olympiad was also Maths Project Festival, which I also won another 2 more years of silver medal. And over the years, I continue to participate in science competitions and different competitions, and I won myself like awards and laptops and sponsorships to go to different causes. And at the age of 21, that's when I was in uni year two. That's when I decided that I would like to do something that is more related to financial, and I wanted to get into quantitative finance in my university. I ended up not qualifying for it, and in that sense, I had to do a minor in financial mathematics instead. And from there on, it just taught me that, financial mathematics is about helping to do understand like present value, future value, how to invest into different types of investments, and what are the instruments that are available to grow the wealth. And that's when I started my internship at the age of 21 in my uni year two. And after that few months of internship, I was very impressed with the research team and also the types of planning that we are able to do, like comprehensive planning for clients. And from then on, it just gave me a lot of interest in wanting to do more for people. And from then on, it just didn't get any less. It just kept going on. My enthusiasm for and love for maths and financial planning just keep growing. So I did my gold standard in financial planning. And over the years, I won awards. I was promoted to associate director when I was 24 years old. Back then, my mom told me that if I want to be a blessing and I want to do donations to people, I must first be financially stable myself. So she advised me to get income generating assets and to invest into things. So instead of buying my first car, I didn't have a car for many, many years until I think was the sixth or seventh year of working. And from then on, I prayed a lot in order for me to decide whether to buy a car. But my first car was a second-hand car that was very cheap. So I invested in income generating assets and to reduce liabilities and things that do not generate income. And over the years, I decided that I would be a blessing by donating my rental income to the people who are less privileged. So I started doing planning for myself to be able to donate like my passive income. So I started with donating 3,000 a month and then increase and then it just increased over the years. And now I do sponsor some kids for their education. And also during COVID period, we also managed to help the people who were having some financial trouble. And from then on, I wrote a book in when I was 30 years old, when I achieved financial freedom, to be able to teach the younger people like around 14 years old and above, because I read books when I was 14 years old about financial planning. And the first book I ever read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And later on, there were a lot of other books that my mom passed to me, like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People and all that. So from then, I decided to write a book and it was translated to Vietnamese. The book is called Money Lessons from the Wild that was written. So I converted all my family members into animals. And because of that, they were all given a story. And each of these stories were telling of different ways to save up to earn additional income for the family and also to provide for sharing opportunities. So my grandmother is the sheep that teaches me about giving generously. My dad is the one who brought me to the bank. So he's a little dog there. He's a very loyal person. Yeah. So all these are just some examples of the stories that I've told. And my best friend is the rabbit. Yeah. So she has been helping me as well over the years. Yeah. So when we look at different ways of stepping ahead and really growing ourselves, we need to keep challenging ourselves at different intervals, at different time frames, so that we know that we never settle for just a comfort zone. Some of the things that I've done are actually out of my comfort zone, but over the years, I have done a lot more in terms of challenging myself. I didn't like to do public speaking. I didn't like to talk to people in the past. My mom almost thought that I was autistic because I would stay at home, not talk to people. I don't even speak more than 5 sentences a day. But when we really want to be a good blessing to people, we need to be able to express ourselves well. And not only that, we need to be able to speak well so that we can communicate well with people and continue to value add to people. Yeah. So for myself, I think the advantage that I have is that I managed to have very good mentors. I surrounded myself with very good people. I always ask myself, what type of person do I want to be remembered for? So I wrote my own eulogy when I was 24 years old. Yeah. So I asked myself, what would I want to be in future? Or what kind of person do I want to be in future? So I work backwards. So there under Stephen Covey's book, it says begin with the end in mind. So I told myself if the end is the myself when I'm much older, and I look back at my life 20 years, 30 years back, what would people say of me? And what would I say of myself? And would I be regretful of the things that I've done in my youth, such that I wouldn't uh, want to do what I've done in uh in in the past? Yeah. So I think when we plan for ourselves or we want to do more things for ourselves and the people around us, one big question is how would it look like 10 or 20 years from now? Yeah. So what do we need to do? Basically for me, I feel that sometimes in my younger days, I keep asking for advice from people that I trust. And I ask them, how can I be better than myself today? So there is a book that's written called Atomic Habits. I read it recently by James Clear. It talks about like being better every by 1% every day. So when we think about being better by 1% every day, it could be just improving ourselves by a little bit. So let's say, for example, today, if I want to get myself to be healthy, I want to be exercising, I need to walk out of my house. But before I decide to walk out of my house, there might be some inertia because I may be so comfortable in my bed. So what I need to do is that I can do this thing called habit stacking, meaning that I would wear my exercise gear the day before I sleep, so that when I wake up, I will realize that I'm already dressed for the exercise. So that gives me less of an excuse and less of an inertia to get out of the bed to go for my exercise. So this morning when I woke up, I already prepared to walk. And I already done my exercise for half an hour before I start doing some of my work. So when we do that, right, we are putting our good habits and our bad habits together. So effectively, if you are already brushing your teeth on a daily basis, what happens is that you will be doing this good habit, but the bad habit could be maybe not wanting to exercise. So by doing that, you need to put things around you that reminds you that you need to exercise. So for my house, there are some equipment that I put like weights, like small little weights around, and I put a machine there to make sure that I look at it and I have nowhere to run from the exercise machine. And I make it so easy and accessible such that I will be able to do it immediately. So now the question for yourself is that what are some of the bad habits that you hope to break? And what are some of the good habits that you hope to adopt for the year ahead? Because it's just January and now it's already February, but of course you're just 2 months into the year. What do we hope to be able to achieve by the end of this year, such that you'll be happy for yourself for doing what you did in February, so that you would be proud of yourself 5 or 10 years from now?
To everyone here, if you have any questions for Joanne, please feel free to ask them. For me, I actually wanted to ask this.
Yes.
What inspired you to start Extensive Wealth Academy, and how has it impacted financial education?
Okay. So in the year when I was 30 years old, that was about 9 years ago, I wrote the first book, which is Money Lessons from the Wild, which was dedicated to the youths because there was not many people who were writing for the youths. So at that point, I set up Extensive Wealth Academy because of two reasons. One is for the book. The other one is also there was a group of people who got cancer among my friends, and they were asking me, Joanne, can you teach me how to grow my wealth, and can you set up a course for this? So I actually told them, okay, they can pay me a fee, but the thing is that I didn't tell them I would refund the money back to them at the end. But the thing is that they attended the whole class, and then I told them, okay, this is a blessing. I just wanted you to pay so that, you would be able to learn this information. So over the years, Extensive Wealth Academy became the word X, ACTS, stands for Acquire and Create Wealth for the Transformation of Lives and Service to Others. And because of this, it is not the extensive, which is the EX, right? So it was meant to really transform lives. And over the years, what happened was that there were more and more people who requested for me to teach. And then now these courses that I teach are actually IBF approved, which stands for Institute of Banking and Finance approved for financial professionals. And we also train across the industry to teach this thing called CFP, which is Certified Financial Planner, which is the gold standard in financial planning. So it started with 2 or 3 students who had cancer, but then it ended with hundreds of students, with people who wanted to improve their lives and to be financially literate, and also to help more individuals, whether it's youths or because there are clients who actually send their children to attend my class like at 16 years old, 17 years old, 18 years old, to understand like what is compound interest, how do we make their first million, how do we compound, and how do we become a blessing, and how do we donate to the people around us. Yeah. So Extensive Wealth has done quite a few interesting projects that we help the people during COVID, and we gave away money. And also I've also been appointed by some social enterprises to be their financial advisor, like from Handicap Welfare Association and a few others, to name them. And some churches have also asked for me to rewrite their investment mandates to be able to help more people. So we can grow wealth for charities as well.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. We have a few questions in the chat as well. Auntie Don's asking, Joanne, how can you start their journey to do what you do? What if they fear money because their backgrounds are so tight?
Yeah. So for myself, I've volunteered with this thing called FinCare, which is started by my mentor. FinCare stands for Care, Aid, Resilience, and Education. So back then, we started by helping one-room flat people. So we went to every single family service center, and we adopted these family service centers. And from these family service centers, there were people who were very poor, and they just didn't want to change their mindset. So in my book, actually, it mentions about this thing called mindset. It's about renewal of mind. That means if let's say, for example, today my mom told me that my grandfather used to be very rich and then he lost all his wealth, and then I decided that, oh, since we are so poor, then we should continue to be poor. Then I think that ended with me, and that conversation just died there. But I think the question that she challenged me was that, how about in your generation you change certain things about our family so that you can probably earn the money back, not just for the family, but to take care of the people around. So I think back then I also donated to a few other places like Agape and others, right? Back then I had this conversation with this lady who was organizing these events, and she said this, Joanne, sometimes if you feel that you are underprivileged, you will be on the receiving end. But the problem is that if you are no longer the most underprivileged, then the thing is that you wouldn't be on the receiving end, you'll be on the giving end. So I said, what does it mean? So they actually send one-room flat people to East Timor who are even poorer than them, to tell them that they are actually empowered to be able to help other people who are in worse state and worse condition. So as long as today you still have water, you have internet, you have the ability to still access reading material, I think you are already ahead of a lot of poorer people. And because of that, right, you have the power and ability to change in your generation what you hope to change. Yeah. So if you say that there is fear, obviously there is fear. I fear public speaking so badly, If you go and check public speaking, right? Back then, my mom told me public speaking is the third largest fear. I don't know whether it's still the third largest fear, but back then it was the third largest fear among all things, right? So I remember when I went to this public speaking class, the person said this, the only way you cannot have any fear is to not be anything, don't do anything, and just stay at home and just don't move. But if you stay at home and you don't move and you don't do, your fear will be your health, right? And obviously there will be other fears that will come along. So I think when we want to step out of our comfort zones to earn the first dollar, to make the first change, right, it will always be difficult. I remember I used to go to sell this thing called the Christmas cards, because my school asked for donations. So I'm very fearful. But at the same time, I went to door knock on every of my neighbors' houses back then when I was 14 years old, because I wanted to contribute to the charity. And it overcame my fear because it was something that is a greater purpose than myself. I didn't need the money from the cards, the Christmas cards. I didn't need it because my family, although we are not super rich, but we are also not poor. We are okay, It's like we can still have our food on the table, we can still have our lights, we can still not worry about money. But the thing is that I kept thinking about the people who needed the money more than myself. I kept thinking about what would this money mean to that person at the receiving end. It allowed me to overcome my fears. And in the Bible, it says that, perfect love casts out all fear. That means if you have some love that is even higher than yourself, or you have your love for your family that is even higher than yourself, you have love for the people around you that is better than yourself, or even if you have love for yourself that is, for survival, then you should continue to challenge yourselves to think beyond just what you have right now and to move to the next phase where it would be such an inspiration to people around. So when I tell people that I overcome public speaking, I overcame fear of heights, I overcame so many things, and now I skydive and all that, right? People are like, how is that possible? Yeah, but I think if I were to stay status quo and didn't want to improve myself 1% than I was yesterday, didn't learn something new today compared to yesterday, yeah, then I think it would be a waste of resources, right? Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I completely agree with that as well. That I think if you do anything that's new, it's always good. You're always going to be afraid. Um, you just have to do it regardless. Um, so yeah. Another question from Auntie Dawn. Can you share with us your past as an educator in Singapore, where you taught, and what do you think our education landscape lacks today?
I wasn't really like a full-time educator. I was just teaching tuition, like one-on-one. And also I was educating mostly in financial space. So it's not really like a educator, like a teacher in that sense. I'm not like in MOE of any of that sort. But if you ask me what are some of the areas where the education landscape lacks, I think, is a lot of practical skills, because a lot of times we realize that the things that we learn sometimes in school is knowledge, but a lot of things may not be immediately applicable. So I feel that sometimes it's like skill sets are transferable. And of course, critical thinking skills are already incorporated in our education. There are also people who started to include financial education as part of their curriculum as well. So I think there will be more of proactive learning and also emotional management. So I feel that nowadays there are a lot of mental health issues. And that's the reason why when I wrote my second book, Don't Get Scammed, it was donated to instead of mental health as well. I feel that sometimes it's about too much knowledge is available because we have internet, now we have ChatGPT, we have AI. We don't have lack of knowledge, but we also don't lack the resourcefulness to be able to get all this information. But I feel that what's lacking is emotional management. How do we communicate with people? How do we communicate our thoughts, our feelings? How do we get things done without having to impose on other people, and also to be able to relate with each other, because we are created to relate with each other. But I think if there is a lack of such interaction in this time and age, it will be quite sad that we'll be all robots, right? And then at some point, it's interesting that one of my clients recently, I met up with her. So she said this, Joanne, I'm not studying anything related to AI. I was like, oh, but that's the in thing. Then she said, no, yeah, because exactly that's the in thing is I'm studying masters in psychology and like emotional management and emotional wellness and also how to cope with stress and all that, right? So I feel that sometimes it's really this aspect I have not learned, especially in school. Maybe now that there might be some curriculum on that, but I feel that there must be ability to network, to work with each other, to relate with each other, and not to be so competitive in terms of results and exams, but really to look at a person as an individual, look at the person's strengths, the weaknesses, how are the places and what are things that can really grow the person. So I remember one of my principals when I was growing up in secondary school. I really look up to her. And I still remember all the stories she read to us when we were like 14, 15, 16 years old. And the stories that she read to us were like Who Moved My Cheese and some of the other stories like working as a team, teamwork, all these things, right? So I feel that sometimes like coping with people working in teams, being able to relate with each other are necessary skills and that should be strengthened. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. From Don again as well. Can little you youths learn from your school and programs? How do we join, if ever?
Okay, so most of my courses are for adults, but I think there are some courses that I do teach for school holidays. So I've done Zoom classes also. I've done a series of 7 classes on Zoom. Yeah, so if you all need me to contribute, you can always we can either send you the recording or we can do like a live session if necessary. So basically we have activities on every session. So there are 5 main things that we teach. One is the mindset, one is the money management, the other one is about um mentorship. That means how do we get our mentors? And there are 2 others which I can't really recall right now. Yeah. So those are the things that we teach to help the students. So we have activities like what would you bring with you if you were to be on space today? Yeah. So these are the difference between needs and wants on money management. Yeah. So if you were to spend every single dollar and you always keep feeling there's a lack, there must be a way that we look at money and how do we differentiate the differences between needs and wants, assets and liabilities? How do we classify all of these things?
Okay, thank you. From Brianne, she's asking, were there any struggles you faced while writing your book?
Okay, so initially, before I wrote my first book, I already wanted to write. So I had 4 different manuscripts. And then very funny, it was like, okay, so I wrote the first one. And back then there's no chat GPT. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I really use not AI, but RI, real intelligence. I was just kidding. Yeah. So what happened was that I wrote the first one for adults, then I wrote another one, I wrote another one. So I just stopped at maybe 2 or 3 chapters. Then there was one day, one of my friends told me, "Oh, Joanne, why don't you attend like this author course, I was like, okay, I'll just go and attend. So the first question that the person asked was very helpful. It says, who are the people that you're writing for? So immediately I just felt like if I really have to write for a group of people, I think that would be the youths because it's the next generation of people. And for myself, because I started at 14 years old, so I didn't manage to find any books that were like easier for me to understand. I mean, it was mostly written for adults. And of course, if I were very old soul, then yeah, sure, I can understand most of it. But I didn't understand most of it. I just like maybe took away two lessons from the book that I read. So I wanted it to be simple enough. So I thought about my family members. I thought about, the youths that I wanted to write for. Then they asked me, so the youths, would they like picture books? Would they like, something with a lot of words? I said, of course I would like picture books because I love to read comics when I was very young. I had like Casper comics. I had like all kinds of comics that I kept in my drawer, and I would just keep reading them nonstop, right? And Garfield and all that stuff. So I wanted like, okay, something that's palatable for the youths to understand, and yet not too many words, and yet at the same time it illustrates a point. So this course, which is the author course, actually taught me this thing about like writing and speaking to the audience. And that's how it came about. So the struggles were basically, who am I writing for? And then after that was settled, I finished writing within 1 month, and they gave me some things to do, like go to the library, find some books that were like similar, written for the similar audience. I couldn't find many, but I found some. They were all talking about like stories. If you recall, there were some stories about the ants, and then the ants were working very hard, along those lines. And there was other stories like Three Little Pigs about teamwork, about family relationships and all that. So that's where I started. So my a few of my stories were a bit weird, so they gave me feedback. Yeah. So I rewrote them. Yeah. So that were some of the struggles. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Another question I want to ask as well is what are the biggest financial mistakes people make and how can they avoid them?
Okay. So my first few investments were atrocious because I look at my parents' investments previously, and then told me you shouldn't invest in stocks because it lose a lot of money and all that stuff, right? So I was like, okay, maybe I should ask my friend. So my friend told me, oh, you should buy this company. And then I bought this company because of his recommendation, because he was like a remiser. And he said his first job. So he's like, okay, just do it. And later on, it dropped about half. So I lost 20,000 in a few months. My initial investment was 40,000. Yeah. I lost half in a few months. The most difficult part about when you make losses is that you seldom want to cut losses, right? So I said, okay, maybe let me analyze the company. Then I went for classes. I went to educate myself, how to look at it. I decided, okay, I'll just cut loss. Thankfully, I did that, because if I did not cut loss at that point, it's worth like less than 10% today. Yeah. So to me, sometimes it's like painful lessons that we learn. But my mom was very insightful. She's just like, okay, if you choose to invest in anything, you have to take responsibility. I was like, okay, what does it mean? That means if you lose, you lose. Then I was like, okay, thank you. It's not helping, but yes, it's helping in a way. Yeah. So over the years, I feel that sometimes we need to have independent thought, but yet at the same time, we need to first be equipped with the right knowledge first before we start to think independently. So sometimes at the beginning, it's just like you do not know what you don't know. So in a journey of financial literacy, it's like I don't know what I don't know. Then later on, I know what I don't know. Then later on, I know what I know. Then, of course, the other one will be subconscious competence. That means you close your eyes, you also know what you know or don't know. So I reached a level where I'm, I've, because of the mistakes I've made, I became more humble and more willing to learn from my mistakes. Back then, when I was studying, I remember during exams, people will start to study, but for me, is I study throughout the year. And the most interesting thing is that only when during exams, I will look at my mistakes that I've made in the past, and I'll just attempt those questions I've made mistakes on as part of my last revision. So to answer the question on like what are some of the mistakes that people make, right? It's like sometimes they get too proud of themselves and their own abilities that they forgot to continue learning. For me, I will spend money to learn every single year. So every year I spend about 100,000. Of course, not everybody has so much money to study, but the whole point is that some people can set aside, maybe even if it's just a small amount, investing in yourself would be going a very long mile. And investing in causes that you know the people are really credible. Because I mean, sometimes we can pay for causes, but they end up not being the right causes. So first of all, you need to research on the person that is teaching the course. And of course, who do you want as your mentors would be very important. That means, would you imagine that after learning something from that person or that course or that thing, that it would really go a very long way for you, or it's just not much? That means if you feel that you are not going to be like the person eventually, then don't bother to learn from this person, because you'll be paying for no reason. So over the years, like surrounding ourselves with the right people is also important, because if you surround yourself with people who anyhow spend money, they will just encourage you to keep spending even more. So my mom says that this thing called Jones and Jonases, don't chase after the Jones and Jonases. So I was like, well, who's Jones and who's Jonases, you know? But the whole point is that it's a figurative thing to say that we should not chase after the next big thing, the next best thing, next shining thing. And if we keep chasing after things like that, you will end up with mistakes. Like let's look at the crypto thing. There are people who come in and rush in when crypto is at all-time high. There are people who rush after this thing called the tulip mania many, many years ago, that they buy tulips and all that, and it became worthless. There are people who rush, and because out of fear of missing out FOMO, they end up losing a lot more than they should be. Yeah, so educating ourselves to have emotional stability, to look at things objectively, to apply critical thinking skills into our uh, analysis of things, and giving ourselves knowledge from different perspectives. That means we need to surround ourselves with good people whom we can approach to ask for advice. So my mentors are really very helpful resource for me over the years. Every time I face a roadblock, I face struggles, I face things that are difficult for me, or even financial issues, I would always look for them to ask for advice. Yeah. So they have given me wonderful advice. And one of my mentors just wrote a book on called Stewardship Unlocked. Yeah. And he asked me to endorse his book. Yeah. So it's quite cool.
Okay, thank you for answering my question. Grace Talent's also asking, what do you think of crypto, since you already brought it up a little bit?
Yes. I'm not allowed to advise on crypto, but yeah, sure. So the whole point is that crypto is something I learned in 2016. So I flew into San Francisco. I went to learn from MIT, which is the best university when it comes to IT related. So back then, my curiosity was that, is it even worth anything? So I went to study on this thing called the financial model. For everything that I have to believe in, I need to look for the financial model, because I am a statistician. That means I look at data, I need proof, and I need a lot of data and proof and financial model for me to believe in anything. I found the financial model and for Bitcoin, and since then I've invested some. But the thing is that of course it has grown over the years, but I don't think that is a point where we need to rush into buying something, because it's not advised to buy or sell. But I feel that it is about understanding and the comfort level. So we have to do this thing called asset allocation. One of the courses that I teach is called asset allocation for financial advisors. And if you were to believe in something, you cannot be 100% invested in that thing. Because if you were 100% invested in that thing, and if it fails, you'll be either having to jump off the building, or if the crypto has exchange that collapsed, like the FTX case. So when people invested through FTX, and then in the end it turned out to be a fraud, it turned out to be a scam. So a lot of times, right, even if the underlying has a financial model that you can believe in, the exchange could fail you. There are people who may fail you. So that's why when we do any form of investments, we must always be diversified. So for myself, when it comes to crypto, I don't hold more than 5 to 10% of my total net worth. In fact, it's less than 5% now, even though it has grown over the years. But the whole point is that I will not want to rely 100% on anything, to be uh invested 100% in anything. Yes, so you need to put proper diversification in place. You need to approach your financial advisor if in doubt. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for answering. Brian is asking, would someone struggle as a financial advisor if they're lacking in math? And I would also like to add on to that. Are there any specific skills that are needed to become a financial advisor?
Okay. So there are people who are not good in maths in my team. I have 44 people with me. But the thing is that not everybody is gifted in this area. So my answer is there are some advisors who are good in relationship building. There are some advisors who can rely on the softwares that we have created to guide their clients. So with technology, it has already enabled a lot more people who are not 100% good in maths. Of course, there must be some form of acumen to and inclination towards maths, because if not, it will be difficult. That means if you cannot even add the sums up, I think it'll be very dangerous for people to trust you. Yeah. So I feel that sometimes it's like if they are good with building relationships, they're good with servicing their clients, they're good with other skill sets in addition to maths is good. But maths is not the only thing. Yeah. And to answer your question on the skills that's required, I feel that sometimes a lot of times it's about communication. And if there's anything about skill set, of course, there are also exams that we need to pass. There are certain exams in Singapore that we need to pass to qualify as a financial advisor to get the license approved. Yeah, so there are many like at least 6 to 7 exams that we need to pass. And of course, we need to be above a certain age as well. In the past, is I think 16. Now it has increased to I think 18 or 21. I can't remember. So sorry. Yeah, but the whole point is that I feel that sometimes when we want to improve ourselves, it is a fun fact, right? That most people think that I'm born with good mathematics, right? But a fun fact is that at primary 4, I almost failed my maths. That's when I decided to improve myself, and I told my mom, please send me for all the tuition that is cheap, that is okay, very convenient, so that it will not affect your daily, that you have to send me very far away, and it wouldn't affect your finances also by sending me for the group classes. So that year I got scolded many times by the teacher because of my not so good maths, but I scored top scores at primary 6, which is around 12 years old. So at 10 years old, I almost failed my maths. I got 52 points or 54 points, I can't remember. But later on, it turned around because I was willing to practice and practice and practice. So I think that any skill set, right, if anything is really perseverance, is really hard work. I'm not the smartest person, but I always like to say that I'm willing to put in a lot of effort to get to where I hope to be, and I'm willing to unlearn to relearn.
Thank you for answering my question. Uh, One last question I think I have would be, what advice would you give to young professionals looking to build long-term financial security?
Mm. So first of all, it's always looking at our cash flow. This budgeting is the first. That means for every dollar that it comes to you, you need to take care of multiple goals. Like for me back then when I was young, I remember they gave me 50 cents. And back then a bowl of noodles was 30 cents. If I spend 30 cents on the bowl of noodles and 20 cents on the drink, I would be left with no savings. But the fact is that I would spend only the 30 cents on the bowl of noodles, and I'll drink water from the tap. And because in Singapore is drinkable, yeah, not for other countries, right? So the whole point is that back then I could save at least 20 to 30 cents per day. And the days when I stayed back in school for additional classes and I needed to take buses and to other places, I would still save the money for the excess. So it's the first principle that you need to know is to pay yourself first. That means you need to start saving before you start to spend. So if you were to start from scratch, for every dollar that you earn today, whether it's from part-time jobs, from teaching, from doing Grab, from selling makeup online, all kinds of things, right? Is to pay yourself first after you made the profit. Then the next thing that you need to know is about net worth. That means when we build up our net worth, it involves assets and liabilities. So we need to build income generating assets. And what are income generating assets? They are assets that will appreciate in value. Like, let's say education. Today, if I were to spend $1 on education and educating myself, it would multiply my wealth because I have knowledge, I have the skills, I have the ability to get into the school that of choice. And of course, I will have network of people who are capable. Of course, if you are not the person who is super gifted in studying, that's not the end. Then you need to be more entrepreneurial. That means, how do you acquaint yourself with people who have the ability to generate wealth through businesses or through skill sets? That means you need to surround yourself with people who are already successful in doing what they are good at ethically, without having to rob a bank or without having to sell weird things, that will be able to help you and equip you. So it's still about looking for assets, looking for good friends as good assets. And of course, to be able to surround yourself with people who see you as an asset. That means the same can of Coke, if you were to put yourself in the supermarket, you'll only be worth 50 cents. But if you were to put the same kind of Coke in the Changi airports or in other high-class restaurants, that same kind of Coke could cost $5 to $10. So you need to position yourself in the right place at the right time and working with the right people who see the value in you. That means if there are people who start to say bad things of you in that group, and they didn't say it just so that they can make you better, they said it to hurt you, then you need to change your environment. You have to change out of that place and to move to people and places where they appreciate you as an individual and they see a 8 or 10 in you, and they want to see your life become better, and they are genuinely wanting to see growth in you. So these are all, although they are non-financial, but the thing is that they will result in rewards if you follow the right company. Yeah. And sometimes financial is also about reducing liabilities. That means the liabilities, when we talk about net worth, is also reducing liabilities would mean I wouldn't buy my first car if it is not for income generation purpose. I mean, of course, there are two ways to look at a car. Some people will say, oh, it gets me to point A to point B. It's necessary for me to get work. But if it is just to show off, like I buy a Ferrari, just to show off that I have wealth, I think that's going to be a liability in the long run, because people spend money on things that don't matter to impress people who don't care, to buy things that they don't really like as well. But if you understand that a lot of things that are really important cannot be counted with money, there are a lot of things that are worth more in life that is worth more than the Ferrari, then, or the most expensive car or the most expensive item, then you need to start placing your emphasis on these things. Yeah.
I guess one for me, this is also for like kind of like personal experience, I guess. Um, how do you know if something or company is, say, a scam? Like, are there any blatant ways that you can tell that a company is a scam or something like that?
Yeah, I wrote in my book, there is a checklist that basically um there's two different things, right? One is a real business, but then it became uh insolvent because it was not a good business model. The other one is that it is really outright to scam you. It depends on the intention of the person. So let's say, for example, some people will say something that is too good to be true is usually not true. But how do we know what is too good to be true and what is true, correct? So the first question is that if it's a financial instrument, because now I'm because there are too many types of scams, I'll just have to narrow it to financial scams. Okay. Because if you are talking about love scam and all that stuff, I think we can now finish covering it. Yeah. But when it comes to financial scams, the reason why I managed to avoid many of these scams is because number one is how did they get the money from? Correct. So the thing is that there was one that was about the gold scam. So it's called Geneva Gold many years ago. What happened is that this person approached me and said, Joanne, I can give you 3% per month. I was like, wow, 3% per month. Then may I know, right, how much are you paid, right, as a result of getting me this 3% per month? He said, I'm actually also getting paid this amount, like another 3% or 4%. Then he said that this gold will be given to you. I was like, okay, this gold, but does the gold price appreciate 3% per month? Then the person said no. Then how will you get the money if the gold that I'm holding on does not appreciate 3% per month? So the person said that, no, we just have a way. Then I was like, okay. Then the next thing is that I asked, what's the paid up capital of your company? Then he said that it's about 1 million. I said, okay. So in terms of the amount of gold that is being circulated, how much is the amount of gold being circulated right now? It is about maybe more than 3 million. So that means if our company goes insolvent, we will not be able to pay you back anything. So I was like, okay, then how many people actually take the gold? It says that if you don't take the gold as a collateral means that in exchange for the money, all right, you will get something. So if you get the gold, how many of the people will want to take the gold? Then he said that most people will, but the thing is that we will give 4% per month if they don't take the gold. Then I was like, wow, gold prices, right? Because it's a commodity. So as a commodity, there are a few things about a commodity. There's a cost price of production, right? There's also a price that it can go up to based on historical performance. So historically, the price is a certain amount. But then I asked them, how did you manage to get this spread? He said that because we buy the gold at a cheaper price, $1,000, let's say, but they mark it up by 20 to 30% before they sell it as a collateral, which means that they already marked it up already. So that means even the person hold on to it and want to sell in the market price, it will still lose 20 to 30%. So in either situation, right, you will realize that a few questions that they couldn't answer would be like, has anybody, you know, taken the goal? It's like some people don't because they want higher returns. And if the returns of normal stocks and shares is only about 12% per annum, in order to do 30% per annum or 36% per annum, you either have to take a lot of risks or you need to employ people who are very skillful to be able to do the job. But the people that they are hiring are not skillful people. They are people who are selling things and their education level is not very high. Their qualification is not very good. So these are some of the things you can tell. But of course, if it is something like a phone call and you are not able to ask all these questions because they are not able to, then the first line of response is always to say no first, correct? Is to protect yourself. But of course, if you really want to do, then you have to ask for certain proof of websites and all these things. But usually, if you search the company name and you put a scam at the back of it, right, you'll be able to see reviews of people talking about that thing already. That's the power of course, the internet. But let's say if you're on the conversation and you have no chance to even do that, usually they will tell you there's no month that is negative. Yeah, but most of the investments, back then I did a talk for a few companies and I gave them 3 examples of investments and I asked them to pick out of the 3, one is a scam. Then they couldn't, they say like 3 of them all look like scams, But the only one that was the telltale sign was that it says that there will be months and it lose money and there will be years and it will lose money. So the one that says that there will be years and months that lose money actually is not the scam. But the one that says that it's always going to go up and it's always going to go well is usually the scam because it is too good to be true in that sense. Yeah. Of course, there's still a lot more, but I don't think I can cover because if not, it will be another 1 hour.